totally oppose the introduction of a wealth tax because we already have 4 wealth taxes in the UK. We have stamp duty, inheritance tax, capital gains tax, and council tax, which all tax wealth. Stamp duty is a tax which is charged when you buy property and also when you buy FTSE listed shares. Let's take a property worth £500,000. If you're a first-time buyer, you pay £10,000 in stamp duty. If you're just moving home and that's your primary residence, you pay £15,000 in stamp duty. But if you're a landlord looking to buy a property to then rent out, you'd pay £40,000 in stamp duty. One criticism of a wealth tax is that a lot of assets are very difficult to value. Let's take artwork, for example. So introducing a wealth tax on someone's artwork would be very, very difficult to do. So let's say people look at then introducing a simplistic wealth tax where they just tax property and also shares, which are easy to value because they're valued on a stock exchange. Someone who buys a house as their primary residence worth 10 million pays over 1.1 million in stamp duty. So if you're lucky enough to be able to buy a house worth 10 million, you pay 11% wealth tax in the form of stamp duty when you buy it. If you then introduce a wealth tax, you're then asking someone to pay another wealth tax on their primary property that they've already paid over 11% wealth tax on. That doesn't make sense. And let's say that same individual bought a lot of Shell shares. Let's say they bought some Shell shares at a very decent price in 2020 when the oil price was low during the pandemic. When they bought those shares, they had to pay a 0.5% wealth tax in the form of stamp duty. They then received dividends, which get taxed. Are you now asking them to pay a wealth tax on those shares as well? And when they come to sell those shares, they then have to pay capital gains tax. So even when you can easily value certain wealth, you're asking people to pay multiple wealth taxes, which I disagree with. Another reason why I disagree with is, if you look from other videos, there are plenty of examples where taxpayer money is wasted horrifically. There's a strong argument to say that taking money off the rich and giving it to the government is not an efficient way to redistribute income. Traditional argument against inheritance tax is you pay tax on pretty much everything you do throughout your life, and then when you die, after you've gathered a whole load of assets, you're then taxed again on things that you managed to accrue with your net income. I'd add a further argument. There are many, many studies that show that the middle class are the worst affected by inheritance tax, and actually I see inheritance tax as a tax on a long marriage. A lot of people who are subject to inheritance tax are people who've been married for 40 or 50 years. They stay with the same partner for decades, work as a team, and therefore are able to gather assets. So inheritance tax is also, I argue, a tax on a long and successful marriage, because they're saying instead of giving your money to a divorce lawyer, the government wants to take it because you didn't give your money to a divorce lawyer earlier. I could understand some arguments for a wealth tax if it was done after scrapping stamp duty and inheritance tax. Otherwise, I totally and utterly disagree with the discussion at the moment of introducing a wealth tax. And also, before we look at any form of further taxation, we need to actually review how the current tax revenue is spent, because a lot of it is just wasted.